Welcome, Amakhosi Network. Welcome to the channel. So today we're updating you on big news that is being reported about the players that are coming to Kaizer Chiefs, and a very big player, a player that is going to rock the internet, that is leaving Kaizer Chiefs. It's big news, but get ready for it. But before we get into it, please like, comment, and subscribe, become a member. You know what it is. You know. Nyaz lana sikhuluma umkosi, sikhulume indaba zangempela. Oh, okay, let's get into it. So let's start with the player leaving, because that one is short and sweet, because the other one I'm going to discuss of the new signings has a lot of drama. Castillo is leaving Kaizer Chiefs. Far Post has reported that Chiefs and Castillo have reached an agreement and have decided to mutually separate and go their separate ways. Now, the Castillo one has a lot of people disappointed. A lot of Chiefs fans were crying because Castillo was a big match player, or on big matches he came and he showed some stuff. But the problem with Castillo was always going to be this: Castillo holds a foreign position, and when you hold a foreign position, it's a thing that you must be better than the other foreign players. And because Chiefs is heavy on the recruitment of foreign players, if a Toto deal is about to happen, whatever, they need a foreign spot. If signing of Igodaro is going to happen, they need a foreign spot. So Castillo is holding a very important spot, and as well as Ntwari. Ntwari is also holding a very important spot. So that's why I'm saying Ntwari is also linked to leave, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. So let's get to Castillo. Castillo Bafetu, a lot of people, you're like, yeah, Castillo siyamthanda, ushaya my header, what. But I have always, this is my question on the Castillo. Yes, Castillo scores goals, but this has always been my argument on Castillo. The problem we have with Edson Castillo is that when he's on the field, he doesn't have a position to play. And that's what makes playing Castillo difficult, or keeping him. Because, here's why I say this. Because, number one, is he a 6? No, he is not a 6. He can't play a defensive midfielder because he doesn't know how to scan. He doesn't know the basics of a DM. So there are many moments where opposition players just come from behind, they mark him. He doesn't have that 360 awareness that a DM needs. Problem number one that Castillo has is that. Problem number two, if you play him as an 8, if you play Castillo as an 8, he is going to have a problem of, like, we're not saying he can't mark or whatever the case. That's why we know he can play 6 for marking, but the problem is he loses the ball. They mark him, whatever the case may be. The problem with playing him as 8 is that he's not influential in attack. He ends up just being a number. And the problem with being a number is that the only time Castillo is effective is if he's in the box. But if he's not effective in the ball, even arriving to him in the box, it becomes a problem. And then that's the same problem as number 10. Number 10, yes, he can play number 10 because he knows how to make late runs into the box, etc. But the problem is, he is not creative to give people those assists, etc. And this is my opinion from watching Castillo. So then what tends to happen is that we need Castillo on the field because we know he can header the ball. But a lot of people were against my suggestion, which I made a long time ago, to say, let's play Castillo as striker. A lot of people bashed me for that. They're like, how can you make him a striker? I'm like, because he's good in the air. He has a good shot. He has good anticipation, good movement in the box. Imagine if he could play a false 9 for Chiefs. I think he would have scored more goals than he did. But that was my opinion. So then what tends to happen is that then Castillo becomes that player who is almost like a player who, if he was a South African, you would keep, because he becomes like a utility player. You need a goal, whatever, you throw Castillo in. But he's not going to be a player you rely on for the season and full 90 minutes. And because he ends up being considered an impact player. And the problem with the impact player is that a foreign player cannot be an impact player. It's the South African guys who you can get an impact player. A foreign player, you need him to play a full season and contribute because he has to be better than the players in the league. And that's the Castillo problem. But anyway, Asiko Lapo, all the best to Castillo. I think he's the kind of player who can get picked up by other teams in the league. I see teams like Stellenbosch. Maybe Sekhukhune, maybe even, I don't think Pirates so much, but yeah, those are the teams that could pick him up. Let's jump to the players getting signed by Chiefs. The story came out by SABC that Chiefs is basically, by Mazola and SABC Sport, that Chiefs is signing Velebayi, or has even reached an agreement. So basically, Chiefs and Velebayi and Chiefs and Luke Baartman, who's a surprise name that has now popped up, have signing for Kaizer Chiefs. It's not saying they signed yet, it's saying or signing for Kaizer Chiefs. So we are waiting to see what happens there. The problem with the case is that it has drama. The drama comes in the fact that when Cape Town Spurs got relegated from, let me say, the Mvela League, and they went to the now third division. When they went there, the problem what happened is that in that division, all players are considered amateur in that division. And according to the PSL rules or the SAFA rules, once you reach that ABC Motsepe League, you are considered an amateur. And when you are considered an amateur, you're almost basically a free agent, right? But there are also some technicalities to that. It's not like a free agent like that we all know. Because the technicality that Cape Town Spurs apparently has in this situation is that, yes, Abo Velebayi and them are considered free agents. But because Abo Velebayi and them with Cape Town Spurs has an argument, and this is an argument that they say is out there and that can be taken to court, is that Cape Town Spurs can argue that they can still pay the salaries and honor their contracts to these players, and that changes the stipulations of the players being amateur. Because what then happens is that if Cape Town Spurs say we can still pay your full contract, we're not cutting your money, whatever the case may be, you still have your full contract. It means that Cape Town Spurs is keeping the status of them being professional in that. And that's the info that's coming around, is that if that team can, because in the ABC Motsepe there's not a lot of money, and it will be difficult for Cape Town Spurs to pay these guys the contracts that a lot of them signed in the Betway or the Mvela League. But Cape Town Spurs is saying, and they even released a statement to say they will honor those contracts. And if that's the case, these players are still considered to be contracted to Spurs, according to the extracts that Spurs released. They're still considered to be Spurs players, and they are not free agents. And that is the one argument. The problem with this case is that this case is going to involve lawyers, because it's a very thin line. It's one of those thin lines that are difficult for people to comprehend. But some people who are on the Spurs side feel Spurs has a case, and some people on the, let's say, Chiefs side or Velebayi and Luke Baartman's camp, they feel like they have a case, because Luke Baartman and them side, they are going according to SAFA's rules. And when you read SAFA's rules are very clear. Guti, these guys should be given their clearance. They are considered free agents. If you don't know what I mean by that, remember Chiefs played a team called Free Agents FC? Yes, Chiefs played a team called Free Agents FC, and those guys were contracted to free agents, but because of the league that they played in, they were called free agents for a reason. That a team, because they were considered amateur players, a team could come and take one of those free agents players and make that player a professional, because they are deemed free agents. That is an example I can give you. And yeah, that's what makes it a bit difficult, because for me personally, when I try to interpret it, I'm like, it's a difficult one, because we have the SAFA rules, But this little clause that Cape Town Spurs is talking about, it's one that I don't know where they're getting it from, but it's apparently there because Peter Dutoit from Soccer Beat mentioned this one, and I think Mtor from Far Post, he also mentioned this one yesterday on Twitter space with Likoko. He mentioned it as well to say this thing, this thing that exists there. And the problem is that now Chiefs and the agents of Luke Baartman, these guys have to consult lawyers because it will be a problem if these guys sign Luke Baartman, right? And sign Velebayi. And then Cape Town Spurs takes this issue to FIFA. And if Cape Town Spurs takes this contract thing to FIFA, it's going to be Adriana Manana / Dex issue where Chiefs could be found to be guilty of signing a player that was not, let's say, they didn't have the right to sign, and then they would either be forced to pay Cape Town Spurs compensation, or they would face a FIFA window ban, which is the one that Chiefs, I'm sure, is scared of, which is why Kaizer Chiefs has not announced Velebayi and Luke Baartman, because Kaizer Chiefs knows this thing, it has to be solved there, because what Cape Town Spurs is saying is that, Tina, we don't mind selling Velebayi and Luke Baartman, but we want the money that we want. And we all know Velebayi, Cape Town Spurs wants us Chiefs to pay 12 million for Velebayi. So you can only imagine what they're going to ask for Velebayi and Luke Baartman. And if Cape Town Spurs wins this case, I can tell you for a fact that Velebayi and Luke Baartman will not be playing for Chiefs. But also, there's another clause there that is apparently being mentioned that when you play in the amateur leagues, you're only allowed to be contracted for 1 season, and then you need to be offered your clearance. So it could be that there's a loophole that Chiefs and these guys can use to be like, these guys have already played 1 season on their contracts, and now at the end of the season, they should be given their clearance based on them having already played a year on their current contracts. And yeah, that one is also one that is difficult to interpret. So I think we're going to learn a lot, and I'm going to keep updating you once we have the final outcomes of the story. But all I'm hoping for is that these boys end up as Kaizer Chiefs player. Amakhosi for life.